Hey students, welcome to Module 5. Hopefully you've had a chance to look through this material already because you have a midterm coming up. If you haven't already had a chance, check out the lesson content folder. You'll find the midterm review all the way at the bottom. It's very extensive, so I'm hoping you already took a look at that since I mentioned it last week. But if you haven't, make sure you do before you take the test. Let's take a look at the test. It's pretty straightforward. Very similar style to the quizzes that you have every week. You have 60 multiple choice or true-false questions, and it's timed just like your quizzes, so 60 minutes, 1 minute per question. That goes really quickly. So it's important that you feel prepared before you take this quiz, or before you take this exam. It will go really, really fast, and you want to make sure you have uninterrupted time so that you don't lose your place, you don't lose your headspace while you're taking this if you had to pause. And if you have any questions about that before you start, let me know. I'm more than happy to talk you through any questions you have. But bottom line is, use that midterm study guide. I think that will be your best bet. All right. Next week, you'll have another case study due, and you're introduced to that this week. It's the Module 6 case study. So again, you have another week yet, but I wanted to give you a heads up on a couple of things. As I scroll down here, in Part 4, you'll see these little boxes. Depending on what Word program you have, you might see these little boxes here. I just want to tell you those are little 2's. Those are subscript 2's. So that means your arterial partial pressure of oxygen, so O2, and then partial pressure of CO2, so carbon dioxide. So don't be confused by those boxes. That information you can be found in your text, or you can just do internet searches for that information. Right, the last part. You are asked to examine different health bars and really determine if you think that they are healthy. Number 2, ask why the bars don't have any cholesterol, and I want you to really think through that. Wait, what's missing in the ingredients list? What don't they have that doesn't contain cholesterol? And then lastly, the number 4 I wanted to point out because there is no correct answer here. Once you look at the ingredients and you look at the nutritional facts, you can determine what you think is the healthiest. There's not necessarily a right or wrong, but as long as you're defending your opinion and you say, this is why I think this is the most healthy, then you're good to go. Just make sure you defend it and you explain why. Alright, so that's about it for Module 5, but I did want to just touch base on Module 4 kind of as a wrap-up. We talked in the discussion last week about vaccines, and a really hot button topic, and it's just one of those things that you can't get away from, especially if you have kids and you have to make the decision. And in our vaccine opt-out question, you were asked to take a stance, pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine, and that's great, a lot of you did. But I just want to offer up a third stance, a middle ground of sorts, because I think that there's often a push to demonize someone for being anti-vaccine or demonize them for being pro-vaccine, when really, if we take a more critical look at the idea of vaccines, there is a lot of gray areas. And I'll explain a couple things, just food for thought here. If you've never heard of the process called fast tracking, you might want to look into that. The FDA uses a fast track when they have a really promising drug. So the best example here in vaccine land is to use Gardasil. So those of you who are my age, maybe a little bit older, but certainly younger, will know what Gardasil is because it was heavily marketed towards us, male and female. It's for cervical cancer. When the company, I believe it was Merck, started to create Gardasil, they had one promising study, and it looked like on this small group of girls who were receiving this vaccine that they were avoiding some types of cervical cancer. So they presented that evidence to the FDA, and the FDA says, all right, you're fast-tracked. So what usually happens then is they'll finish that clinical trial while they are putting this onto the market and using it in real, everyday people. That's not the case, and that doesn't always work out. That initial trial was never finished, and we've been giving Gardasil to 11, 12, all the way up through 26-year-olds for probably close to a decade or more now, and we don't have long-term study results because they were never completed, and there was no pressure for them to be completed. So why would the pharmaceutical companies spend money to prove their drug works when they can already sell it? So that's just one thing to consider. There's other vaccines that have been around for decades. Polio, for example, we have great long-term evidence that that works. There's undeniable proof that it works. There's undeniable proof that it doesn't cause autism. But there's so many other variables in this situation that I really encourage you to look at more than one source and take a third stance. Instead of being fully pro or fully anti-vaccines, look at each one individually. Look at the stats, the research that has or hasn't been done, the reason it exists. Is it saving lives, or is it just making your life more easy? What are the reasons we're using this vaccine? So those are just a couple points of thought, and I'd like you to consider those as we all become more critical thinkers. So that's all I have for you today, and I hope to either hear from you soon or see some good scores on those midterms. I will talk to you next week. Thanks.